Halloween! In honor of the holiday, I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the most terrifying moments in horror. This video will have some spoilers, so I'll leave some timestamps below so you can jump ahead if you need to. Hail payment. Let's jump into the list, guys. The first scene I'm going to talk about is in Sinister, and you all know what moment this probably is. The lawnmower scene. So Sinister centers on a writer who's living in a haunted house, and he finds a thing of videotapes, and when he's watching them, he sees people basically being brutally killed. And in one of them, it's a really amazing jump scare. It involves a lawnmower. Video shows this lawnmower going along, mowing some grass until it reaches a person's face. That moment was terrifying. It was a really good, well-timed jump scare, and I think about it often. Next is Lake Mungo, which is a mockumentary-style horror movie about a young woman who has passed away, and her family begins seeing her ghost. And they're essentially telling the story of her life and what led up to her death. The moment that is super horrifying, this character, she's out partying, and this cell phone footage shows something. It's her, but she's dead. So she basically gets a glimpse of herself dead in the future.
At some point, this figure came towards her from out of the darkness.
And it's absolutely terrifying to think that you could one day just see how you're gonna die. And how would that affect the rest of your life? Next is the moment in Signs, which is the M. Night Shyamalan movie starring Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. They're a bunch of people living on a farm when aliens invade. And as the situation is unfolding, news stories are breaking everywhere around the world. And Joaquin Phoenix's character, he takes a chair into the closet and he's watching the news, and they show a children's party in like Mexico or something, and he's leaning closer. He's like got that anticipation. He's getting closer to the screen, and then suddenly you get this quick glimpse of the alien just walk by, and it's horrifying. That moment is the moment my soul left my body. The way that Joaquin reacts, perfect. Next, we have The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is a found footage horror about an elderly woman who is dealing with some dementia. She's sleepwalking at night and doing some really weird things, and this film crew is there to document her progression, and they discovered that there might be something a lot darker at play. And there's one scene in particular involving the lead character. They're like down in some caves and they're looking for her. She's disappeared with this little girl, and when they come upon her, she's got her mouth fully extended, jaws open, on this little girl's head, just eating it like a snake. And it's so unnatural and so unsettling. It's absolutely disturbing. It shouldn't be happening, and it's freaky as hell. Sometimes I'll be laying in bed and I'll think about that moment. I'm just, ugh! It's just one of those that just gets burned into your brain. Next, we have Hereditary. So Hereditary is the Ari Aster film about this family who is going through a lot of difficult situations after the loss of the matriarch of their family. This movie is heavy. It deals with a lot of issues of grief and loss. And there's one particular scene where I feel like we all collectively gasped when it happened, because it involves Peter, the brother. His mother tells him to bring his little sister Charlie along to a party. So he brings her to the party. He doesn't really pay attention to her because he's doing his thing. And she starts eating snacks, and we find out that she is allergic. She starts having an allergic reaction. She goes to her brother. She's like dying, basically. He freaks out. They get in the car and drive away. Instead of calling the ambulance, they're speeding down this road. She's trying to breathe, so she sticks her head out the window as he's speeding down the highway, and a nice telephone pole is coming up, and her head just smacks into that telephone pole, and he just sits there in shock. We're all in shock. I remember I've never gasped so loud in my life. When that moment happened, I couldn't breathe. All I knew is that this little girl was supposed to be like an integral part of the story, and in a way she is. But when that moment happens, it was so absolutely unexpected. It was so violent, and it was just abrupt. And I remember the theater just being absolutely silent for several moments as we all just kind of grieved that moment together. And I was like, shit, this is gonna get bad. And it did. It did get bad from there, okay? Next up is Audition. So this is a Japanese horror movie about a widower who decides to hold a fake audition to meet his next wife, unbeknownst to these women who think they're auditioning for a real film. So he meets this woman. She's beautiful. She's like a little shy and reserved, and she's just stunning. She seems like the perfect woman. And then you realize as the audience that she's fucking crazy. And the moment I'm talking about is the bag scene. So she goes on a date with this guy after the audition. He's like, I'll call you. So she sits and waits by that fucking phone for days, for weeks probably, waiting for this guy to call her back. And then he finally does call her, and the moment the phone rings, you see her sitting there just slumped over. Bag on the floor next to her starts moving, and you realize there's a man inside it. And it just gets worse. The things he comes out of the bag eventually. You see he's really super disfigured. She makes him eat vomit. It's disgusting. It is so shocking. This is the moment that made me just solidified this movie for me. I was like, this is fucked up and I love it. Next is It Follows. So It Follows is about this young girl that is being haunted by this sexually transmitted disease. It's this entity that will basically stalk you until it kills you. And it's transmitted by sex, only you can see it. And it takes shape of your deceased loved one for some reason, and they're naked. The one scene in particular is the reveal of the tall man. So our lead character, Jay, is with her friends. She's freaking out.
Don't open the door. See? Everything's okay.
That moment is absolutely terrifying because it's so simple and you're not expecting it to happen. It's a jump scare without like being too aggressively in your face. It's just this guy appearing and walking towards her. Next, we have The Exorcist, which is one of the scariest horror movies of all time. And there's a lot of terrifying things in this movie. Was it the moment where Reagan comes down to the party and pees in front of them? No. Was it the moment where she decides to have a little one-on-one time with herself and a crucifix and then shoves her mother's face into her bloody area? No, but we're getting close. The scariest moment to me is when we get to the actual exorcism with Father Merrin and Father Karras are actually like doing their thing, trying to rid this girl of the demon that's within her, because she just amps up with that vulgarness and violence, and she's just straight up demonic, obviously. But the moment that freaked me out when I was a child is the moment where her head starts turning.
Of our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!
And I don't know how she survived that, but I'm not going to question it. Next, we have Scream, which is the Wes Craven slasher about a mass killer who is killing this group of teens in Woodsboro. And the movie opens up with an infamous kill of Drew Barrymore, who was a huge star at the time. Everybody was shocked by it because we thought she was going to be the star of the movie. But the whole scenario is just absolutely terrifying, and her death is brutal. But the lead up to that, when they're having this phone conversation where it starts off simple and then he finally says,
"You never told me your name."
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
"Sir, get the fuck out of here." No. That is the most terrifying moment in the movie to me, because just the thought that someone is watching you and you can't see them, but they can see your every move, terrifying. And then what happens after? Ooh, poor Casey, man. Ooh, and the parents listening to her die on the phone. No. Next, we have The Ring. So I'm talking about the American version of The Ring. This is about a reporter who's investigating this mysterious videotape that seemingly is cursed, and when you watch it, you'll die 7 days later. So she's trying to figure out how to stop it. And then she thinks that she has solved the issue by the end of the movie. She and her boyfriend think everything is all good, and they go back to their lives. But you know what? It's not all good. Her boyfriend finds out the hard way when he's in his room and his TV turns on and this little bitch starts crawling out of the TV towards him. I fucking lost my shit when that happened for the first time. And it's so weird because you're like, holy shit, I'm watching this movie and this person is watching a movie and it's about a cursed movie and this thing that comes out of your TV. And I was like, what if this comes out of the TV to me? And it was just scary. And her face was just so horrifying. And just the fact that you don't really know what she does when she sees these people, I think they just die of fear because it's so terrifying. And even the beginning of The Ring where they find the girl in the closet and her face, so scary, so scary. Next we have The Blair Witch Project, which is one of the best found footage horror movies of all time. And this is about a group of student filmmakers who head into the woods in search of a witch, and things go horribly wrong. They get lost in the woods, and then towards the end of the film, all hell breaks loose, and Heather, our lead character, she's alone, and the two guys she's with, she doesn't know where the fuck they are. And then she makes her way down to the basement. Why? I don't fucking know, because I would never go into the basement. I don't even like going into my own basement. And she finds Mike standing in the fucking corner of the room. In the story, the witch would put kids in the corner right before she was about to kill them. So that's, you can kind of assume that's what's happening. And Heather and them are all
Fucking dead.
ooh, even just like seeing that image of Mike, it haunts me to this day. And it says so much without saying really anything at all. And I loved it. I thought it was a perfect ending. And lastly, we have Paranormal Activity, which is another found footage horror movie. This is about a couple who are documenting the paranormal activity that's happening in their home. And you see how it escalates over the course of each night. And it gets really violent and terrifying. And the scene that always stuck out to me was the moment when Katie is laying in bed, she's asleep, and then something that we can't see, she can't see, grabs her by the foot and yanks her out of the bed. And just the idea that you could be asleep when you're most vulnerable and this thing just fucking pulls you out of bed and you can't see it or stop it, and her screams chilled me to the bone. And there you have it. Those are some of my favorite horror movie moments that absolutely terrified me. Let me know if you want me to do more of these, because there's so many memorable moments in horror that are absolutely terrifying or that absolutely terrified the shit out of me. And if you want a better list, I suggest looking up Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments, because that was my horror education, and they go through some of the most memorable, scariest moments in horror. That's how I learned about Audition. I recommend that. I love to revisit it every so often. It's on YouTube. And I hope you guys have an amazing Halloween this year. Stay safe, eat lots of candy, don't have sex, and lock your doors, keep your lights on, try to avoid Sam, try to avoid Michael, and have a good old time. This is our time to shine, people. Happy Halloween! Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye.